This week I'm driving the newest Renault Megane E-Tech, which is related to the Megane in name only, as this has been built from the ground up as an EV, which is very exciting because it means that you get some cool EV features because of it. It's not a hatchback like its namesake either, but rather a crossover, which means it sits lower than its small SUV rivals. It competes against heavyweights like the Hyundai Kona Electric and the Volvo C40. And in this video, I'm going to show you what my week was like with Renault's smallest and cutest EV. For now, the Megane E-Tech is only being offered in one grade for the Australian market, and that's the mid-level Techno EV60, and it's priced from $64,990 before on-road costs. That positions it right in the middle of its rivals. For a mid-spec variant, you get a decent array of features in this model, like heated front seats, a heated steering wheel, and wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. However, you did miss out on items like a powered tailgate, sunroof, and electric front seats, which all of its rivals do sport. The full specs are in my detailed written review at carsguide.com.au if you need more info. The E-Tech's plump body paneling does give me some cute marshmallow vibes from certain angles, but there's enough cool features on it to keep it looking slick, like the fun LED headlights, the massive 20-inch alloys, and the two-tone paintwork. I quite like the door handles on the E-Tech. The front have auto flush handles that pop out on approach, and the rear are featured on the C-pillar. Even the boot has a square little button instead of a normal handle, but it all creates an interesting focal point no matter where you're looking at. If you're eco-conscious, this ticks that box, because Renault has designed the E-Tech to be 90% recyclable. The body is made of aluminium and it's reshaped and repurposed at the end of its life. The inside cabin materials are made from recycled fabric for the trims, and even the lithium-ion battery is free from any rare earth minerals. I like the eco-thinking that's gone into the design, and the finish has been beautifully executed. And even though there are some recycled plastics in here, you don't focus on them. The grey knit fabric on the seats, doors, and dashboard create a really welcoming and warm cabin space. And maybe it's just the knitter in me, but I really loved the texture of these seats this week. Although on rainy days, I did have a little bit more anxiety about dirtying them. Up front, it's very roomy, and I love how well positioned the armrests are because it makes the seats feel a little bit more like a lounge. The seats themselves are very comfortable, and I like that you have powered lumbar support, and I could forgive the fact that they're not electric if the price point was a little bit lower. You get lots of individual storage up front, and this center console pocket is probably one of the most practical that I've seen in this class. I also love how you get a dedicated phone shelf for your phone. The charging is good in this model, with both rows getting 2 USB-C ports. The front also gets a wireless charging pad and a 12-volt port. However, this car does miss out on vehicle-to-load capability. The 9-inch touchscreen multimedia system looks great, and it's easy to access information from it. It has shut down on me once during use, but it rebooted quickly, and other than that, it's been very responsive. It's got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, like I mentioned, and it's been very easy to connect to the Apple CarPlay this week. The steering wheel looks great and feels lovely under hand. I also like how driver orientated it is. You have lots of buttons, the regen paddles, the usual stalks, as well as a column shifter on this one. I'm in the back seat and I have plenty of headroom for my 168 centimeter height. Legroom is okay for me, but if you're tall, you're definitely going to get squished. There's also not heaps of toe room in this model. For the width of the seat, this is probably best suited to just 2 backseat passengers. The amenities are okay with directional air vents, those 2 USB-C ports, mat pockets, reading lights, as well as storage bins in each door. The door sills sit quite low in this car, which means you have to duck to get in and out, which I found to be a little bit awkward. It's also a little bit uncomfortable when you're on the road because you can get jostled against it, which means I found that I was leaning more in, which isn't as comfortable because you miss out on a fold-down armrest. The boot is decently sized at 440 litres. The well is quite deep though, which could get annoying if you have to lift out heavy gear. Underneath the floor, you have a little pocket for storage of cables and the like, which is great. And like I mentioned, there's no powered tailgate in this model. The Techno EV60 has a single electric motor with a combined power output of 160 kilowatts and 300 newton meters of torque. It can do a 0 to 100 kilometer per hour sprint time in 7.4 seconds, which is perfectly adequate for your urban trips and keeping up with traffic on the open road. The only time that you notice that it's a little bit sluggish is when you have a full load of gear or people. In that case, I would flip it to sports mode because that makes it feel peppier. The steering is crisp and that makes this quite responsive, and the power is delivered smoothly and feels quite well balanced. There is a little bit more roll in this in corners than I was expecting, but having said that, it still feels pretty firmly seated on the road. The ride comfort is really good and the suspension is more firm than soft, and while you do feel the road, you're not bothered by it. At high speeds, there is some wind noise in this, kind of like you've left your door ajar by like a millimeter. It didn't actually bother me like I thought it would, but it is there. There are 3 levels of regen braking as well as a 1-pedal function. I actually found the 1-pedal function to be pretty smooth, even in stop-start traffic, which was great. And you can control the regen braking levels via paddles on the steering wheel, which I think is really convenient to change them while on the go. Because of the small stature of this crossover, it makes it pretty easy to park, and it helps too that you have front, side and rear parking sensors, which is pretty essential because the reversing camera on this is not very good for this price level. The official energy consumption figure is 15.6 kilowatt hour per 100 kilometers, and I average 13.9 kilowatt hour after a fair mix of urban and open road driving this week. That's outstanding consumption. And the official driving range for the 60 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery is up to 454 kilometers, which is similar to the Kona, but I still had my eye on the range on longer trips. The E-Tech has a Type 2 CCS charging port, and that means that you can benefit from faster charging speeds. On just standard AC power, the max speed you can accept is only 7.4 kilowatts. And on that system, you'll go from 0 to 100% in as little as 9 hours. If you plug it into just a standard house port, which only gives you 2.4 kilowatts, expect that to creep up to a whopping 30 hours. On a 130 kilowatt DC charger, expect to go from 15 to 80% in as little as 30 minutes, which is pretty convenient if you have access to one. But this car doesn't have vehicle to load capability, so you can't charge bigger items while on the go. The E-Tech has a maximum 5-star NCAP safety rating from testing done in 2022. It has 7 airbags, including a front center airbag. And there are a bunch of safety systems on this car, including some bonus items like rear collision warning and rear fog lights. A real highlight is the digital rear view mirror, which I feel is essential in this model because the back window is quite narrow and that camera feed just provides a much clearer view than you would ordinarily have. Check out my written review at carsguide.com.au if you need more safety specs. The E-Tech is covered by a 5-year or up to 100,000 kilometre warranty term, but it is usual to see an unlimited kilometre warranty term for this class. The battery is covered by an 8-year or up to 160,000 kilometre term, and Renault haven't released service cost pricing yet, but servicing intervals are reasonable at every 12 months or 30,000 kilometres, whichever occurs first. I really like what the Renault Megane E-Tech offers. Its design is top-notch and the eco-conscious footprint is even better. It's a comfortable and nice car to get around in, but the price point is a smidge too high in my opinion, especially given that there's only one option available for us Aussies and it's a mid-level variant at that. Its rivals do have a couple of features that this doesn't have, but it still gets an 8.1 out of 10 from me. If you're after more details, check out the full review at carsguide.com.au and I'll see you next week.